Hello and happy Monday, everybody. Here's what's coming up tonight on Now. There is a new contender for governor. Janet Mills has joined the race. She'll join us live in studio.
Plus, we're checking out the study that links Alzheimer's to a serious lack of sleep. I think you're in that category,
That could be a problem.
We're talking with a doctor live.
We'll also tell you how you can weigh in on Katahdin about the National Monument. This is your last day. We've got some details and some of your comments.
This is News Center now.
And I'm Amanda Hill. We're more than a year away from choosing Maine's next governor, and as of today, another name will be on the ballot.
That's right. Attorney General Janet Mills announced that she'll be seeking the Blaine House in 2018. Governor LePage will have reached his term limit at that point, so he can't run again. That means it will be an open race. According to the Portland Press-Herald, Mills is the 9th candidate to toss her hat into the ring. The other big name so far is former DHHS Commissioner Mary Mayhew. State Treasurer Teresa Hayes, an independent, has also announced her candidacy.
Janet Mills will be live in studio in just a few minutes taking your questions. You have a few moments to get your questions in now. Comment on our Facebook live stream.
But first, you got a full night of sleep, but you still wake up and you're feeling a little bit tired. That could be because you didn't get enough deep sleep.
Not only are we sluggish the next morning, but it could have long-term health consequences, including a possible link to Alzheimer's. NBC's Erica Edwards reports.
Sleep expert Dr. Douglas Kirsch says too many restless nights can lead to a variety of health issues.
Problems like diabetes and cardiovascular disease.
Now we may need to add Alzheimer's disease to that list.
When people don't sleep well, their brain cells don't get a chance to rest.
Dr. Yoel Ju tracked the sleep habits of 17 healthy people at home and also had them spend 2 nights in her sleep lab at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. Each time the participants drifted into deep sleep, a beeping monitor would rouse them out of it and into lighter sleep. That caused levels of proteins called amyloid to rise in their spinal fluid.
Also, when we looked at their home sleep, the worse their sleep, the more their tau increased. Both amyloid and tau are proteins that are involved in Alzheimer's disease.
Just 1 or 2 restless nights should not cause long-term damage. The concern is for chronic sleep deprivation.
If you're not getting enough sleep over months and months, yeah, it's going to lead to you having problems down the line.
Sleep experts advise staying away from caffeine, alcohol, and electronics before bed. Erica Edwards, NBC News.
Joining us now is Dan Secto, who's the program manager of the Maine Sleep Institute at Maine Med. First of all, listen, getting all kinds of sleep is something that we'd all love to do, but it kind of sometimes falls by the wayside. Why is it so important?
Well, sleep is really a large part of your overall health. We spend a lot of time in our society focusing on diet, exercise, which are both as important, but equally important is the amount of sleep and quality of sleep that you get.
Let's talk about best ways to get the right amount of sleep. What are 3 top ways?
Well, the first I would say is to set a regular routine. So have a same bedtime at night, get up at the same time in the morning. Try not to alter that as much as possible. It'll train your body to sleep at the appropriate times and get the appropriate amount of sleep. Also, get rid of distractions in your bedroom. Electronics, TVs, even books can be, if you're somebody that has trouble sleeping or initiating sleep, it's better to not have those distractions. Have a cool, dark room free of distraction.
Isn't that kind of a bad thing to have? A lot of people fall asleep with the iPad on or television on.
Very bad habits to get into. It's your body produces melatonin, and that's regulated by light. And when you have that blue light from your electronic devices, it can interfere with your body's production of melatonin.
All right, so other than not having children, how do you get enough sleep? And what is enough sleep? Or is that person to person? Or?
Well, for adults, it's 7 to 9 hours. It's recommended.
Sorry.
As you get younger, adolescents require 8 to 10 hours, and it increases as with younger children.
All right, Dan. Thank you very much for the time. Appreciate it. 8 to 10 hours, my goodness. If I get that in a week, I'd be excited. All right, today is the last day for public comments on whether or not the Katahdin Woods and Water should stay a national monument. President Obama signed an executive order last year designating nearly 90,000 acres formerly owned by philanthropist and entrepreneur Roxanne Quimby to the U.S. Department of the Interior and National Park Service. Now, the Quimby family gave the National Park Service $40 million endowment for the project. Governor LePage wrote to President Trump back in February asking him to reverse that executive order, which created the monument, and then return the land to private ownership. Not clear if a president can even undo an executive order that creates a monument. Just under 58,000 people have commented on the government's website for public comment on national monuments, and people have until midnight tonight to be heard. There is a staff of 20 people that is sifting through all of the comments that get submitted. One commenter writes, in part, the process to designate the Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument was open and transparent with multiple well-attended meetings. Polling shows tremendous public support both locally and across the state.
Another comment read in part, please, please do not rescind the Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument. This idea was thoroughly vetted for almost 4 years. There were meetings and votes and many discussions, both formal and informal. Quick look at the website showed overwhelming support for Katahdin to keep its national monument status. Again, you have until midnight tonight to be heard on this matter. And if you'd like to weigh in, just go to regulations.gov. All
right, when we come back, Attorney General Janet Mills is live in our studio. We are talking about her campaign for governor, the opioid crisis, and much more. Your questions, her answers after the break.
And breakthroughs in cold cases because of a new DNA database. How state police are solving serious crimes using this tool. All right, this afternoon we asked you, the viewers, what you wanted to know about candidate Mills and her vision for Maine. She joins us now to give us some answers. Thank you for joining us.
Good to see you.
We're starting with the big one. In your announcement, you said the opioid epidemic would be a major issue in your campaign, and you specifically referred to the current governor's refusal to take action. So how would your administration handle this differently?
Well, first of all, you know, a year and a half ago, the legislature, with consent of the governor, authorized 10 more detox beds in the Bangor area. Those beds have yet to be opened. There's no good reason for that. It shouldn't take a year and a half to just open 10 new beds, new treatment beds for this, to treat people with substance abuse disorders. We need more than 10 beds. We need more detox facilities, more outside treatment facilities, more medication-assisted treatment. I want to encourage every primary care physician to become a provider of medication-assisted treatment. I want to get out to the schools a lot more, get into education and prevention. We've got to get the message out there that you can't be taking just one dose of heroin. It could be the last time you take it. And you know, I personally distributed Narcan to 55 different police stations across the state. As of last weekend, we've saved 208 lives with that Narcan. I'm pretty proud of that, but now we got to get those people into treatment and make sure they don't overdose again.
We're getting some questions here on Facebook, and Alicia wants you to explain what happened with the tribal issues with the Penobscot River.
Oh, a good question. The tribe brought suit 5 years ago before I was Attorney General. They sued to establish some exercise dominion and control over the Penobscot River. They asked the court to rule. The court did rule. They appealed. The appeal was just decided. I'm anxious to work with the tribes to make sure that we have the most pristine waters all across Maine, not just the Penobscot River, but all of our rivers and water bodies. We have what the EPA nationally has called some of the best water quality in the country. I want to make sure it stays that way, and I look forward to working with the Penobscot tribe and other tribes to make sure that happens.
All right, Diane is asking, what will you do to bring higher paying jobs to Maine?
Good question, question of the century. You know, I think we want to bring what's making southern Maine prosperous to the rest of Maine, for one thing, and that means extending our infrastructure, making sure we have the best infrastructure, not just roads and bridges, which are needy in many ways, many places, but also broadband and energy infrastructure. Bring what's good in the southern part of Maine to the rest of Maine. That means encouraging and bringing to Maine entrepreneurs, investing in research and development, making sure that the people who are here now, the technology companies like Tilson Tech, Fluid Imaging, those kinds of companies, are going to stay here. that we have a consistent regulatory environment, consistent tax policy, the kinds of things that bring businesses here and keep them here, and bring that to the rest of Maine too. I grew up in Farmington, and I delivered newspapers as an 8-year-old kid and waited tables in the Shiretown restaurant, so I know what the working life is like in the rural parts of Maine, and I want to bring those jobs back to the rural parts of Maine.
On that note, Brendan wants to know, are there plans to lower the tax burden for Mainers, and what will you do to keep young people working and living here?
That's two different questions. I raised 5 daughters here. I married a widower with 5 children. They're all grown up now, and I have grandchildren. I want to make sure, I want them to leave, and I want them to come back. I want them to feel comfortable coming back here. So that ties back to the earlier question, how do you make sure there are good jobs here for them to come back to? And that means preserving our natural environment, preserving a good regulatory structure, a consistent tax structure, and making sure we have good schools. Young families stay where there are good schools for their kids to grow and learn, and that's very important. Let's take what's good about Yarmouth schools, Cape Elizabeth schools, and make sure they're happening in Washington, Piscataquis, and Franklin counties too.
One more question here. Did you see a possibility for Maine to follow in California's footsteps, offering single-payer health care?
Well, we don't usually follow California.
A little different.
In an ideal world, I am for single-payer. As a practical matter, it's very difficult to implement in a small state like this, but ideally I am for universal health care. One of the first battles I took on against the LePage administration was fighting to preserve health care for low-income 19 and 20-year-olds. He took it all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, and I beat him back, and we preserved fundamental Medicaid expansion for that group. 19, 20-year-olds were working their tails off and not going to college, but working low-income jobs and unable to afford health insurance otherwise.
All right, Attorney General Janet Mills, thank you. The latest to join in the governor's race. Thanks for joining us. Lee?
All right, we've got some very frustrated people who are maybe a little bit happier now because cars are moving again. There was just a major mess this afternoon. The Casco Bay Bridge, which connects Portland and South Portland, lost power. First on the northbound side, then on both sides, which forced drivers to just park and wait. An electrician eventually fixed the problem and the traffic. As you can see, traffic is moving once again. The Laconia, New Hampshire Fire Department has a staggering spike in Narcan doses. Through this Facebook post on Friday, the chief writes, Laconia firefighters in the past 68 days have administered 116 doses of Narcan. This is a 905% increase over the same time period from a year ago.
We're finding that sometimes it takes 2, 4, 6, even more milligrams to actually revive some of these patients that have overdosed.
We went to Laconia to speak with Deputy Chief Sean Riley. He heads up the department's EMS program. Tomorrow on Now, we are looking closer at those numbers and what they actually mean to him, and hear about a special program the department has in place to help addicts beyond just a trip to the hospital. Still to come on Now, the new Lobster Roll Festival is getting a lot of criticism on social media. We went to find out what went wrong and find out how the organizers are responding to the issues.
And it's sticky outside, high humidity with a chance for some thunderstorms tomorrow. Keith Carson is in with the full forecast. Beautiful weekend for some, but a less than impressive one for thousands of lobster enthusiasts. Down East Magazine is apologizing after its first Lobster Roll Festival left a bad taste in the mouths of some of their attendees.
Yeah, our Jessica Gagne shows us that long lines and an abrupt evacuation were just a couple of the reasons why complaints are rolling in on social media.
We stood in line and stood there and stood there and stood there.
A frustrating experience for Richard Hooper, who says he drove to Thompson's Point in Portland from Mechanic Falls for Down East Magazine's Lobster Roll Fest. He expected a fun day filled with vendors serving up Maine's most famous crustacean, but instead spent most of his time waiting around.
It was a disappointment.
A feeling shared by a lot of the people who made the trip out, with several of them taking to Facebook to express their dissatisfaction. Laura Jocelyn of Gorham says said she had to wait 50 minutes just to get a beverage.
Everybody was grumbling in line how poorly organized it was.
Mother Nature didn't make things any easier. A couple of hours after the gate opened, attendees had to be evacuated when a severe thunderstorm rolled through and destroyed tents and displays. No one was injured, but the storm brought an end to the outdoor events.
There was a significant amount of debris, which actually made it impossible to reopen the grounds.
The weather can't be helped, but Kathleen Fleury from Down East Magazine says the festival's biggest problem is that it was more popular than expected.
Clearly, there's an overwhelming interest in going to a lobster roll festival in summer in Maine, and unfortunately, we were not prepared for the level of interest.
Fleury and her company are apologizing to those who didn't enjoy their time at Thompson's Point.
We care so much about Maine and about lobster, and we expect better from ourselves, and we intend to honor that for all of our customers.
If they return here next year for a second try, they plan on being prepared for whatever or whoever rolls in. In Portland, Jessica Gagne, News Center.
Now, there were positive comments on Down East Magazine's Facebook page praising organizers for handling the sudden storm so well. Fleury says anyone with a complaint can email events@downeast.com and expect a prompt and personalized response. We should also mention News Center was a sponsor of the Lobster Roll Festival. Lee?
Investigators are solving forensic crimes using a new tool called CODIS. Chris Rose has some more on that, so we come to his desk. Hey, Chris.
Well, the analysts at the Maine Crime Lab had a very good month matching DNA found at crime scenes to potential suspects. Now, they're doing this with something called CODIS, Combined DNA Indexing System. It allows them to match DNA samples with a database of people implicated in other crimes in Maine and across the country. In May, it helped match potential suspects to 18 crimes, everything from arson to kidnapping to sexual assault. Now, new technology is helping investigators solve crimes, we know that, but CODIS has really been a game changer and is perhaps the most important tool in the Maine Crime Lab.
I think definitely it has been, you know, from the early to mid-1990s when it came on board, it started solving crimes.
But with CODIS, it's searching the entire country all the time once you have this unidentified profile, and it's solving cases on a very regular basis.
Now, twice a week, the analysts at the Crime Lab will match new DNA profiles that they gather to 32,000 DNA samples that are online in Maine, and to 13 million across the country. And typically, in a month, they will get anywhere between 5 and 20 CODIS hits. And as we mentioned, a very good month in May where they matched 18 of those samples to potential suspects in crimes.
Making it a lot harder to get away with stuff these days,
It
right?
is.
All right, more tonight at 6 o'clock?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll look forward to it. Thank you very much. Amanda?
Thanks, Lee. When it comes to tipping service professionals, there's a little bit of debate about what is fair. A new survey by creditcards.com looks at the tipping habits of consumers. The best restaurant tippers are men, Republicans, Northeasterners, and those who pay with a card instead of cash. Those groups tip a median of 20%. Women tip a median of 16%, and Democrats, Southerners, and cash users tip a median of 15%. 1 in 5 people that eat in a sit-down restaurant don't tip at all, at least occasionally. Less than 30% of survey respondents said they give tips to housekeepers or baristas. For the record, I'm always at least 20.
20 is easier in your mind to add. The only thing I don't like, this is the only thing,
It's easy math.
is when, have you ever gone to a place where you would never have thought of a tip, and then they turn the screen around and there's this place for a tip, and now you're like, do I need to give one? You know what I mean? Like just a quick moving restaurant where it's put in there. I get it.
I've been to places though where they have that, but it's only because that just happens to print out, and they say, no, we don't accept tips.
Yeah, if you're smart, you don't say that though.
So what's with my hair? I'm worried about my hair for tomorrow.
Your hair is gonna the frizz factor tomorrow, Lee. You're gonna have to put a lot of extra gel in there. A lot of extra gel. Got a couple of showers out there right now. They've been largely dying down as they head towards the coastal plain. That will continue and they'll fizzle out in the next 2 hours or so. Actually pretty warm across the interior. 84 in Sanford, a little sneaky there. 83 in Augusta. The coastline has cooled down into the 70s with a little bit of an onset of a sea breeze. Most of us though comfortable, although the humidity is increasing, and it's going to reach kind of an apex tomorrow, getting very, very humid. So here are the showers dying down. A round of thunderstorms is possible tomorrow morning as a front approaches. This round of showers and thunderstorms could actually temper some of our instability tomorrow afternoon. There is a chance, though, for some severe storms later in the day as the cold front pulls through. Once that front comes through, we'll get drier tomorrow night and much more pleasant in time for Wednesday. Storm Prediction Center is kind of a national forecasting agency. It's a government agency that overlooks severe forecasting across the country, so tornadoes, severe thunderstorms. They put us in what's called a marginal risk for severe weather tomorrow. It's certainly not their highest risk zone, but it's them acknowledging the ingredients are in place for some severe storms tomorrow over Maine, and as you can see, much of New England. Biggest threat here would be straight line winds that could be damaging. Maybe a little hail. I don't think we'll see much rotation, so the tornado threat should be low. After that, we clear out for Wednesday, but the pattern overall is basically every other day, because then Thursday is rainy, Friday looks pretty good, a chance of a shower as we head into the weekend. We've got the jet stream right over us, and it's moving these systems very quickly through. So the net result is we see showers every other day. None of the systems, though, all that powerful. By the time we get to early to mid next week, we get that jet stream to the north of us, we ridge out, and that's the first time in a while that I've seen a signal that suggests, at least, that we could see some real heat next week. Look at these dew points, guys. We're going to talk about dew points and raindrops in a minute here. 68 in Portland, 71 in Sanford. You're not going to be happy about that. Very uncomfortable air tomorrow afternoon. Will, though, dry out for Wednesday. I'm not locking this weekend in. I think it looks good. It wouldn't shock me to have to put a shower chance in on Saturday. The shower chances should be relatively low, though, overall. And as I mentioned, guys, I'm seeing a signal that could suggest some actual heat for next week, but we'll watch as we get closer.
Okay. All right.
Take that.
Yeah.
Heat is good. Bring it.
I'll stay inside tomorrow. Thanks, Keith.
All right. We're back.
All right. Today's raindrops, pertinent. We're going to talk a little bit about humidity, which is going to be very high tomorrow. Our dew point tomorrow will be right around 68 to 70. So you can see on the scale that you start to notice the dew point. You perceive it at around 60. Under that is nice, and when you get under 50, it is noticeably dry. Here's a map of the United States with current dew points right now. What I want to point out to you is I've noticed when I lived in Georgia for a while, and people, if they go to Florida, say, that the dew points in the 70s become a commonplace thing. But when they get up into the Northeast, it becomes a big story because it is an unusually moist air mass, and your body just isn't as used to it. This is amazing. So dew point of 75 is just downright impressive. The record for the world dew point, I just looked this up, was in Saudi Arabia in 2003. The dew point was 95.
Wow.
The temperature was 108. Jess, what was the heat index again? It was like 147 or something was the heat index. 174.
Yikes.
That's like a cooked meat, isn't it?
That's crazy.
Isn't that what the temperature forecast to be done?
I think so.
The other way meat, yeah.
It's going to be like 160 something.
Nobody went outside. But anyway, it's just a long way to talk about the differences in air mass that you experience on a day-to-day basis.
So tomorrow's going to be really great.
Tomorrow's soupy southern.
Soupy southern. I didn't know you worked in Atlanta. Hey, News Center at 5:30 starts right now.